Welcome back to another story. Before we dive into today's tale, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tales from the HOA, for more gripping neighborhood dramas and real-life stories that will leave you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's set the scene for today's intense confrontation. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over the quiet suburban neighborhood. Lawns stretched out in neat manicured squares, and the faint hum of a lawnmower echoed in the distance. Birds chirped lazily from the trees, and the occasional bark of a dog added to the idyllic soundtrack of suburban life. But the tranquility of the afternoon was shattered by the sharp, raised voices coming from the porch of a modest, light-colored wooden house. The scene was tense, charged with emotion, and the air seemed to crackle with unresolved conflict. On the porch stood three individuals, locked in a heated argument. At the center of the drama was a middle-aged man, his light brown hair slightly tousled, his face a mix of concern and frustration. He wore a light blue patterned long-sleeved shirt and jeans, his posture slightly hunched as if trying to shield the woman beside him. She was slightly older, likely in her late 60s, with light skin and a face etched with lines of worry and distress. Her light blue patterned shirt and dark pants seemed almost too cheerful for the turmoil she was experiencing. Her mouth was open mid-shout, her hands gesturing wildly, her entire body leaning forward as if trying to make her point heard. To her right stood another woman, likely in her 40s, her dark hair framing a face flushed with anger, dressed in a light gray short-sleeved shirt and dark pants. She was the most outwardly aggressive of the trio. Her arms were crossed, her eyes narrowed, and her voice cut through the air like a knife. She was facing the camera, her expression demanding, her tone unyielding. The man, positioned in profile, seemed to be trying to mediate, but his efforts were drowned out by the escalating voices of the two women. The porch itself was a simple structure, made of light-colored wood that gleamed in the sunlight. Behind them, the suburban neighborhood stretched out, with rows of houses and neatly trimmed lawns visible in the background. The scene was framed as a medium shot, capturing the raw emotion of the moment. The perspective was slightly elevated, as if the viewer were looking down on the confrontation, adding to the sense of tension and drama. The colors of the scene were bright and natural, with the warm lighting of the sunny day emphasizing the intensity of the argument. The atmosphere was confrontational, charged with anger and frustration. The subjects were positioned centrally within the frame, their body language speaking volumes. The older woman in the center was leaning forward, her face a mask of agitation, while the man beside her seemed to be trying to hold her back, his expression a mix of concern and frustration. The younger woman on the right was the most aggressive, her stance and tone demanding attention. As the argument raged on, the tension between the three individuals became almost palpable. The older woman's voice rose in pitch, her words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "You don't understand. This is my home, and I won't be pushed around anymore." Her hands gestured wildly, her distress evident in every movement. The younger woman shot back, her voice sharp and cutting. "You're being unreasonable. This isn't just about you. We all have to follow the rules, and you're no exception." Her arms were crossed, her stance rigid, her anger barely contained. The man, caught in the middle, tried to interject. "Please, both of you, calm down. We can figure this out without shouting." But his words were lost in the cacophony of voices, his attempts at mediation futile. The argument seemed to center around some unresolved issue, perhaps related to the neighborhood's homeowners association, HOA. The text overlay on the image hinted at the nature of the conflict. When HOA rules clash with personal freedom, tensions run high. It was a classic tale of authority versus individuality, of rules versus personal rights, and the emotional toll it took on those involved. As the scene unfolded, it became clear that this was not just a simple disagreement. It was a clash of values, of generations, of perspectives. The older woman, with her deep-rooted sense of ownership and independence, was fighting to maintain control over her own life. The younger woman, representing the authority of the HOA, was determined to enforce the rules, no matter the cost. And the man, caught in the middle, was struggling to find a way to bridge the gap between them. The argument showed no signs of slowing down. The older woman's voice grew hoarse from shouting, her face red with exertion. "I've lived here for decades. I've paid my dues, followed the rules, and now you're telling me I can't even pay my own house." The younger woman's response was immediate, her tone unyielding. "The rules are there for a reason. If we let one person break them, it sets a precedent for everyone else. You agreed to these rules when you moved in." The man tried again to intervene, his voice pleading. "Can't we just talk about this? There has to be a compromise." But his words were drowned out by the rising voices of the two women. The scene was a snapshot of a larger conflict, one that played out in neighborhoods across the country. It was a reminder of the complexities of community living, of the delicate balance between individual rights and collective responsibility. And it was a testament to the power of emotion, of how deeply people could feel about their homes, their freedoms, and their sense of belonging. As the argument continued, the tension on the porch seemed to reach a breaking point. The older woman's voice cracked with emotion, her eyes filling with tears. "I just want to feel like this is still my home," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't want to feel like I'm being pushed out." For a moment, the younger woman's expression softened, as if she were seeing the older woman in a new light. But then her resolve hardened, and she shook her head. "The rules are the rules," she said firmly. "We all have to follow them." The man sighed, running a hand through his hair. "This isn't getting us anywhere," he said quietly. "We need to find a way to work this out." But as the sun continued to shine down on the quiet suburban neighborhood, it was clear that this argument was far from over. The tension on the porch was a microcosm of a larger struggle, one that would take time, patience, and understanding to resolve. And that's where we'll leave today's story. If you enjoyed this dramatic tale, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Tales from the HOA for more real-life stories that will keep you coming back for more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.